from the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus. This is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon. My name is Victor Gaucher, and this is your midday news update for 1680 The Crow. Today's top story comes out of the world of hockey, as the board of directors for Hockey Canada will be stepping down amidst the ongoing sexual assault scandals surrounding Hockey Canada. This announcement comes on the back of the news that Bauer is the latest company to publicly announce the end of their partnership with Hockey Canada. Bauer is following the likes of Canadian Tire, Tim Hortons, TELUS, and Scotiabank. Since the first allegations of sexual assault, it has since been revealed that Hockey Canada has paid millions of dollars towards settlements of sexual abuse dating back as far as 1989. Hockey Canada's interim chair of the board of directors has submitted her resignation. Rob Westgate has more.
Hockey Canada has been in the hot seat recently over its handling of sexual assault allegations and the creation of two separate funds to pay off sexual assault settlements. During a hearing on Tuesday, Skinner insisted that hockey shouldn't be made a scapegoat for a toxic culture that exists elsewhere in society and referenced politicians who had been accused of sexual misconduct. That statement and others led companies and organizations to suspend their support for hockey's governing body. Rob Westgate, The Canadian Press.
Canada is sending about 40 combat engineers to Poland to help train Ukrainian forces. Since 2015, the Canadian Armed Forces have helped to train more than 33,000 Ukrainian military and security personnel. However, since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the training efforts have been halted. The Canadian forces have also aided the Polish government in refugee support as well. On Monday, Ukrainian cities were hit with horrific strikes as the skies rained cruise missiles from Russia. This most recent hit killed civilians and caused power outages in the most widespread air attack on Ukraine since the war began in February. Reporter Britt Clennett is in Kiev with more.
With Putin under pressure at home, especially from his hardliners there, Kyiv remains on alert still, and there are real fears of more attacks to come, potentially even nuclear fears, as Ukraine advances on the battlefield and liberates more and more of those occupied areas in the east and south, and the Russian forces face more crippling losses. That remains the question. What will Putin do next?
Staying in Europe, the OPEC Plus alliance of oil exporting countries, which is 33 countries around the world and responsible for deciding how much oil to sell, has announced they will be cutting down on their production by 2 million barrels a day beginning in November. Reporter Alexis Christoforous explains what this means for consumers.
For a few years now, because of the pandemic, these 33 countries that make up OPEC Plus have been enduring relatively low oil prices. So what they're trying to do with this production cut is lift the price of oil on the world market. They say that will help to stabilize world economies, and they think it will also incentivize investment in the industry. But what it's going to probably wind up doing is sending gas prices higher around the world.
These fears continue to emerge that major global economies will sink into recession due to high inflation, rising interest rates, and energy risks as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the COVID-19 pandemic. In other news, a horticulture teacher from Minnesota drove 35 hours towing a 1,161 kilogram pumpkin to set a new record for the heaviest pumpkin in America. With the record, Travis Ginger won a cash prize of over $23,000 at the 49th World Championship Pumpkin Weigh-Off in Half Moon Bay near San Francisco, California. Almost a month after his unexpected death, rapper Coolio has re-entered the charts. Reporter Jason Nathanson has more.
Sales and streams of Coolio's music up in the wake of his death. The rapper's biggest hit, Gangsta's Paradise, re-enters the Billboard Hot R&B Hip-Hop chart at number 16 and the Hot Rap Songs chart at number 11. Coolio died suddenly last month at the age of 59. No official word yet on the cause of his death.
Prior to his passing, Coolio's career album sales totaled 4.8 million, with 978 million on-demand streams of his songs. Vancouver's 9th traffic fatality occurred on Monday night as a woman was struck in Vancouver's downtown east side. Police say a sedan was traveling west on Powell Street, and struck the woman near Gore Street. The driver remained at the scene, and police believe speed or alcohol were not factors in this collision. The amount of people who own exotic animals on Vancouver Island is slowly increasing. Chattis Leo has more.
Over the past few years, more and more lost exotic pets are being reported on Vancouver Island. Last week alone, there were 2 separate instances of wild servals on the loose. Terry Ma, co-founder of Reuniting Owners with Animals Missing, says it's a personal choice if people wish to own an exotic pet.
Is that the right thing to do or wrong thing to do? That's a personal decision. Obviously, the SPCA is trying to get them somewhat either banned or, declared endangered, whatever that stature is. But, to me, it's a decision that's a personal thing.
Ma suggests that anyone who's ever considering to adopt or purchase an exotic pet is to do your research well in advance before considering taking on the commitment. For 1680 The Crow, I'm Chattis Leo.
We now go live to reporter Chattis Leo for more. Chattis, are loose exotic animals a regular occurrence on Vancouver Island?
Hey, Victor, it is not that common, but it is not the first time this has happened on the island. Besides the 2 serval cases last week, animal rescue organizations have also tried to save snakes, rare parrots, ostriches, and more.
What is the SPCA's current stance on exotic pet ownership?
According to their website, the BC SPCA is opposed to keeping, breeding, selling, and trafficking of any exotic animal. They believe that owning these animals can lead to the animal suffering, endangering the public, and negative consequences for the natural environment.
Thank you, Chattis. The MLB playoffs begin today with 4 games on the schedule. The Phillies and Braves are playing right now with the score 6-1 for the Phillies in the bottom of the 4th inning. After sweeping the Toronto Blue Jays in 2 games, the Seattle Mariners travel to Houston to take on the Astros. First pitch is imminent from Texas, and Astros manager Dusty Baker believes his leadoff hitter, Jose Altuve, can be the X factor in the series.
There aren't many leadoff hitters like Jose Altuve that can have enough speed to steal if you walk them or get on, or have enough power to hit the ball out of the ballpark early and put you up 1-0.
Finally, the New York Yankees welcome the Cleveland Guardians to town, and the Los Angeles Dodgers welcome the San Diego Padres to LA. The NHL season is here, and the Vancouver Canucks begin their season tomorrow in Edmonton. Forward Ilya Mikheyev will begin the season on the injured reserve list alongside defenseman Travis Dermott and Tyler Myers. Brock Besser, on the other hand, will be on the active roster to begin the season after recovering from hand surgery back in September. Puck drop for the Canucks at Oilers is scheduled for 7 p.m. Pacific time. And now for weather. British Columbia continues to have the warmest and driest October in years. The forecast this week will be a mix of sun and cloud, with today reaching a high of 19. Temperatures will continue to rise throughout the week, and it's predicted to reach highs of 26 this weekend. Our province has been in a drought for weeks now, and there is still little to no rain scheduled in the next week. Thank you for listening. I'm Victor Gaucher, and this has been your midday news update on 1680 The Crow.
extremely important for people to stay healthy and to stay active as much as possible.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Teresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Trentonero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Thank you for joining us here on another companion call for BCIT News. I'm Chadis Leo, your host today, and we are on the British Columbia Institute of Technology here in Burnaby, and BCIT and ourselves acknowledges that the campus is located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations, which include Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish Nation. Today I have Aaron Mitchell. He's here today to talk about the Two-Spirit community. We're going to learn a bit more about him and also the Four Feathers Society, which he's also a part of. So I want to thank you, Aaron, for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm wondering, I wanted to leave it to you to let us know a bit more about how you identify your pronouns and let me know a bit more about you and if you want to include a bit more about your Indigenous background.
So I identify as a two-spirited Indigenous male.
Mm-hmm.
What that means to me is that I'm gay and that I am Indigenous as well.
Mm-hmm.
And for me as well, the two-spirited term means that you're walking on the red road as well, so that healing journey.
Okay. And I think we're going to get into that a bit more because I really want to learn to identify about the terminology and what makes it, different than the typical LGBTQ plus community. So can you tell me, because you said what it means to me, what Two-Spirit is to you, is there a more underlying umbrella term that you could teach people that are listening and watching what Two-Spirit means?
I guess so. Two-spirited is an Indigenous term for the LGBTQ umbrella. So it doesn't necessarily mean gay or bi. It's kind of that umbrella term as well. So anyone that fits in that LGBTQ plus fits in there, but I'd say they need to be Indigenous as well for that term.
Okay. And can you tell me, and again, it might be a bit obvious, but if you can tell me what are the underlying reasons why it's important today for Indigenous people that are part of this community to identify under the Two-Spirit category, if I may be so bold, or and because it's obviously part of the LGBTQ community, but there's this terminology that's separating Indigenous people instead of LGBTQ. Can you tell me why that difference is so important?
I guess because it's bringing back that decolonization, right? So back in the day, two-spirited individuals were considered higher. Like, they were usually shamans, like medicine men or women. So it's that decolonization. And educating, I guess, right? So with the residential schools and everything, that the churches kind of took that away, right? So it's bringing it back and showing that it's okay to be who you are.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about that when we were communicating through email before we met here physically, and you talked about the struggles that you have with your identity today. You're still facing it compared to what you had, growing up and younger. So can you tell me a bit about the struggles you had as a young Indigenous person and how you're still trying to find who you are today?
When I was growing up, I was in a small community. So there wasn't many people that were out, I guess. So I didn't really know where I was, who I was, because I didn't really see it. And I guess in a way it felt wrong because it wasn't normal.
Were you, like, when did you know that you were different?
I'd probably say around 10 to 12-ish.
10 to 12, okay. Now, growing up in a small community, obviously times have changed now where there's a lot more acceptance to the LGBTQ plus community. Now, as somebody who is out and is actively part of a society, which we're going to talk about, do you feel like, maybe you can't speak for Indigenous communities as a whole, but the community you're from, do you feel like there's been a greater sense of acceptance of the community and yourself?
I'm not really sure. Like, I haven't really been part of my community that I grew up in. I was always, like, I went to school off of the reserve and away from the community. I do know a few community members that have came out as well, so I don't really see the discrimination, but I'm not also there to know if it is happening or not.
Sort of like myself too, a bit more of a urban Indigenous member.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Now let's talk a bit about the Four Feather Society, which is where I found you guys online and how we're here today. And it seems like it is a support community for two-spirited people in the Lower Mainland. And I'm wondering if you can elaborate and extend on why it's important that you're a part of this society and what are they doing to help two-spirited community members?
Why it's important for me to be part of that is to get that education out, and make it more, I guess, that acceptance level. Like, it is acceptable, but it's not in a way, right? Like, different people have different views. So I guess it's just letting people know that there is people there that they can talk to, or there is that community that they can be part of and not feel alone.
So would you say that's the main goal of the society, is that people who are two-spirited and need that support and that help and like that's the place to go, sort of a safe haven is what you're getting at?
Yeah, I guess, and the healing part of it, right? So part of the society, what we do is we put on groups that could be talking circles. Some of them are educational groups as well. So getting into like trauma healing, grief and loss, and just other groups like that brings people together to be able to talk about issues that are going on.
Now, again, this may be a bold question. You don't have to answer it if you don't really know, but maybe you could speculate on it. Do two-spirited or Indigenous people that identify within the queer community or LGBTQ community, do they feel like having this two-spirited society speaks to them more, it can help them more than, let's say, regular, not to not to criticize any other society, but do you feel like the meaningfulness behind this society speaks to them more, can help them heal better? Do you feel like just having people that they see that looks like them is going to make a bigger difference and a bigger impact in their lives?
I would say so, yeah, because part of it is all of us that are part of the society are in that umbrella term LGBTQ, two-spirited, and we're all Indigenous as well. So it's like people helping like people. And I've always found when I do my healing, that's more powerful for myself.
Can you speak to what the healing looks like? I don't know how much detail you can give us, but what does some of the healing process look like to people that are a part of the Two-Spirit community?
I guess it'd be easier to share a little bit more about what it is for me.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love that.
For me, it's that talking about traumas that happened, or that trauma can be anything, right? It could be just bullying. It could be more severe than that as well. So it's that safe place to be able to talk about it. And I've always found the more you talk about it, the less it hurts.
I want to ask you, the terminology two-spirited, because when I've gone around and talked to colleagues and friends, generally the term hasn't been heard of before. So it's a new term, at least within my circle of friends and colleagues, that it's such a new terminology that when they even ask me how to describe it, I say, I don't know, I can't yet. I'm going to talk to somebody who knows. What does the future hold for the Two-Spirit community? Do you feel more people are going to be able to, come out more, feel more comfortable, and like, what do you think the future holds for the Two-Spirit community, at least on the Lower Mainland?
I guess in hopes, anyways, it's getting that greater understanding out, and part of the reconciliation and all of that. I'm hoping it's going to be a safer place, and that people feel more comfortable to come out and be themselves. Because I know when I was hiding it was very uncomfortable, and just not being able to be who I am. And sometimes even in circles now, I still hide that because I'm not 100% sure how people are going to act or react.
So that's where you're getting at, where you're saying the struggle is still real because there's still a lot of education that the general public needs to be more accepting for you to feel, at least you personally, to just be yourself all the time, 24/7.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I hope that changes, and it's conversations like what we're having today that hopefully will make a difference to, even if you inspire one Indigenous person who's struggling. I mean, I would at least assume that you feel like it's a job well done. So I'm sure you're doing some great work. Now, can you also let me know a bit about if the Two-Spirit community, or even if you want to talk to Four Feathers, speak on behalf of Four Feathers, is there a communication and a working together kind of process because there's lots of LGBTQ plus societies. Do you commonly work together towards similar goals?
Yes, but with the COVID going on, I know it's kind of ending now, but it was a lot harder to get together and do that. So with things opening up again, that hope is that we get back to being able to partner with other organizations to be able to, I guess, even put out more of that education if they're not necessarily Indigenous organizations.
Absolutely. Now, for people that are listening and watching, if they are somebody who's Indigenous and want to maybe take that first step and reaching out to yourself or the Four Feathers Society, what is the best way for somebody who's kind of on the fence of what they should do?
Probably right now the best way is our website, which is fourfeathersociety.com. And there's a membership application form as well. And when you do that, we actually mail out a welcome package, which is a smudge bowl and some sage, and I believe sweetgrass.
Oh, that's nice. Awesome. So what are the other benefits that come from signing up as a member for Feathers?
You'll be notified about groups that we're putting on. Again, that's kind of how you apply for or sign up for the groups as well, because some of them are limited spaces.
So back when you were younger, and you were going through these struggles of, finding yourself and kind of keeping it to yourself, do you feel like your life would have been different or easier if a society like this had existed when you were younger? Do you feel like the impact of these types of groups are really making a difference in people's lives?
I do feel like it would have been different because I would have realized that there was people out there like me. I felt like it was just me and I was broken, I guess, is the best way to put it. Or not normal, but what is normal even, right? So it's... I think having that society would have been even easier, right? Knowing that there's people there, people that I could have talked to, and
giving you the support that you need, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And because you've obviously worked directly with a lot of members and people coming through the society, what has been the general reaction of those people who are going through the programs? Can you maybe give us a little insight on how it's changing their lives?
I guess I've been able to see people do their healing, right, and have that space to be able to talk. So seeing more comfort from them, and from the beginning to maybe a couple groups in, they're more comfortable speaking in front of the other people as well.
Mm-hmm. You must see when they come in maybe really timid and reserved, and then as time goes by, when you get to know people, all of a sudden they might be a completely different human being like week 3, 4, 5, or 6, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
Yeah, what a difference, hey? I mean, that's how you can tell, right? You can tell that they're being more comfortable, more open. At least I would assume so. That's amazing. Now this might be an interesting thing to find out, is looking into part of the healing process. Can involve many different things. Does the society or other societies have like elders that come in and help with the healing process as well too?
We have had elders. Again, most of our stuff's been through Zoom, just the challenging times right now. So we have elders that participated in the Zooms for people to talk to. We did do an event. It was kind of like a camp out healing, and we had some elders there as well. And I have seen a lot more organizations out there having the elders come in as well.
That's good. Sounds like that's really helpful. Well, Aaron, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come here to the BCIT Burnaby Campus and talk about the Two-Spirit community, talk about your journey, and these things are sometimes hard to talk about, but I'm sure people that are listening and watching will hopefully appreciate the conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
shoes on. Like, if I leave them on, I ruin the streak of the last, 10 years of never wearing shoes when I work. I do all kinds of tattoos, whatever the customer asks for mostly. But lately I've been doing mostly form line style indigenous tattoos. I'm Métis on my dad's side, but I was raised by my mom. So I didn't grow up with a huge personal connection to my indigenous ancestry. But as I started doing more indigenous tattoos, that kind of got me a little bit more interested in finding more about my own history.
I say Hari Tundo, Tatemusli, Sastrosli, Nadle within Yinka Dene Dakesh. In my language, that means my name is Randall Bear Barnettson. I come from the Bear Clan, the village of Nadle, and of the Dakesh First Nation. That's my nation. On the back tattoo, I think it's been about 12 hours now, I would say. 10 to 12 hours. On my left arm here, I have the bear for Dentemu, my Bear Clan. And then I have the Thunderbirds on the middle, and then the double eagles on the bottom. So this is for my Dakelth people on my mother's side, and then also the double eagles for my Newhawk family, and then the Thunderbirds for my father's side. His crest was a Thunderbird. So that's why I have the Thunderbird on my back as well, along with the bear. Since time immemorial, we would commission an artist to do a clan design or a crest for us in our community. We'd go to a local artist and ask them to do a design for our clan or community to represent ourselves, our family, our community, our nation.
Adi, Ani, Sasan, welcome to my studio.
So my tattoos, they all represent that, from my Bear Clan to my Thunderbirds to my Eagle Clan. They represent and they place me in my community and show my affiliation there. And so that's why I love working with Logan, because Logan, he helps me to kind of embody these teachings in these clans and crests, and he really contextualizes these teachings that we have. And then on this side, I got the East Van cross, because where I was born, East Van. So I kind of go between two, because traditionally, land and people are the most important things to us as traditional indigenous people. So when I turned 18, I was like, I'm going to get the East Van cross on my arm. I'm going to go to do it. I went to a tattoo artist, and he said, nah, come back in a couple of years when you figure it out a bit more. And I was like, what the hell, man? I want to get tattooed. And he was like, nah, think about it some more, come back. And then I waited a decade, and Logan did it for me.
My name is Shanton Hopkins. I am a tattoo artist here at East Van Warren Tattoo Company. Born and raised in East Vancouver. I am Indigenous to Darcy Anderson Lake, better known to us as the Naquaqua people. It's part of the Stallion Nation. So growing up, I was a pretty rebellious kid. Just always getting into trouble, getting into fights, drinking, stealing cars when I was 12. Went to jail when I was 14. It's just a lot of pain and trauma from my mother. She was an alcoholic who dealt with her generational trauma from my grandmother, who was in residential school. So just trickled down, passed down to me, right? But me and myself, I've been doing a lot of work on myself. I've been sober now for 3 years. Trying to break the chain and the link for my kids, right? So my style, I like to stick with a realism, black and gray, but I like to try to incorporate a native form line art to it. So I do my own West Coast style, form line, native art with the realism. Yeah, it's just sort of a unique touch that I wanted to come up with. For me, I always wanted to sort of incorporate like the native art inside of my tattoo work. And black and gray realism is something that I always wanted to pursue. I want to keep that style of art alive. I want to keep the form line art alive, right? It's been here already for centuries. Even though it's been tweaked a little bit, whatever, like all artists have their own styles of their own art, right? Well, we have all kinds of different backgrounds getting like Oriental Japanese style sleeves. I tattooed this native guy just last week. We did a full native realism piece on his arm, full sleeve. He already had an existing like Oriental Japanese style dragon on his other arm, right? I'm like, yeah, if like you have like enough love and respect for the culture, like I don't see why it would be an issue for anybody to want to get like form line native art tattooed on their bodies, right? If it's nothing but love and respect, that's all that matters, right?
I think it's really complicated. It's non-Indigenous people, unless there's like, the way I was taught is if there's a story, connection to the story, and you go about it in a good way, as you do work with an Indigenous artist, and you go about the proper protocols, and you know the story and the connection there, then it's more acceptable. However, if you get a clan design or a clan crest, then that has such larger meaning behind it, and affiliation too, like I said, to place, community, to people. And you're essentially saying that you are part of them. And that's a tough thing to claim. And we always say it's not who you claim, but who claims you.
It's a little controversial, and it's everybody has a differing viewpoint. And for me, it's different client to client. Like sometimes, like I have some European tourist that's like, yeah, I want this salmon because I'm in Canada. And in that case, like, you know, go home and think about it a little bit, do a little bit of research. But other times, like I've tattooed white people that have been adopted by a nation and have lived their whole life on reserve and around Indigenous art and Indigenous people, and they want to honor that. And I think that's dope too.
Was a strip club and very much like a biker skittish kind of hangout. My dad's stories about Steveston are a lot different than what my feelings about Steveston.
I see Indigenous tattooing kind of flourishing even more. Just the artwork in itself is becoming more and more popular. People are more down to collect fine art and that sort of thing. Like I know the Canucks are having warm-up jerseys done by an Indigenous artist. So it's kind of in people's faces so much more, and it's so much more like widely accepted. And yeah, I think the future is bright for Indigenous tattooers, for sure.
Ooh, does it feel?
Yeah.
Greatest feeling.
Natalia for showcasing Logan and traditional tattooing and traditional Indigenous art, and having this be a part of the conversation and bringing us to the table in that. So Natalia in my language means thank you for everything you've done for us.
I was just gonna go do my own thing, but then I ended up, there's something in me that just stopped, and I sat on the curb and I just started crying, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, what? This is just, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm Amberlina Murray. I'm 33 years old, and I was raised in Port Coquitlam. So I was 9 years old when I started smoking weed, but it quickly, like between 9 and 10, probably 10 or 11 is when I started getting into ecstasy and cocaine and more of the harder drugs. I was fully addicted to crystal meth when I would say 13 is when I was fully addicted to it. I was born with a very sick mother, so I was born addicted already. And then my whole childhood was full of abuse and anger, and my mom being sick and having to watch over her, as well as she lived in the hospital pretty much in nursing homes because she couldn't care for herself.
What happened with Amber's mom and Amber is an absolute tragedy, and no child should have to go through that, and it breaks my heart.
So we didn't have like a good relationship at all. My dad, I was always daddy's little girl, but at the same time there was not much my dad could do because he was so focused on taking care of my mom, like he was her caretaker. I think he was at a point in his life where he just didn't know what to do. His life was so chaotic with this one woman that he didn't even know how to deal with his daughter who was addicted to drugs. As soon as I started smoking weed with friends at a youth center or started doing ecstasy, or the one thing that came to mind was I didn't have to feel anymore. Like those feelings were gone. Like I didn't feel pain, I didn't feel anything. And it was an amazing feeling. Finally, once in my life, I could turn to something that I didn't have to feel. It was when I had kids is when I realized I had a problem. I got clean at 15, 16. I stayed clean. I had the two older kids, Savannah and Caden. And then I split up from I left their dad. And all I knew was that little family. Like that meant the world to me. When we split up, I went right back into addiction and left the kids with my dad and their dad. And I didn't get clean until my youngest kid's dad came in the picture. And I only stayed clean because I got pregnant right away. I had no idea how to even get like a month or 2 months. 2 months was probably my longest. And then I just kept relapsing. I was definitely loaded there. And we went to the P&E and I couldn't even handle it for like 2 seconds. I was in the bathroom like the whole time. Like I was a shitty human being, like shitty. Like I was not a nice person unless I wanted something. That was the only time I was nice. And as soon as I got it, you wouldn't see me again. Like I just, totally opposite person than who I am off drugs. And that's just how it is when you want to get clean, it's like, you want to get clean, but your head's like so powerful in that moment when you start detoxing that it's like crippling. And so I talked myself into making a phone call. And when I asked to make a phone call, they said, if you make the phone call, you need to leave right now. And I still decided to make the phone call. And there was no pickup from my dealer. So they kicked me out anyway. The recovery house.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, my name is Kyle Collis, here with your sports and weather updates till 1 p.m. Hockey Canada has announced some big changes after a series of scandals hit the sport's national federation. Greg Strong from the Canadian Press has more.
Scott Smith is out as Hockey Canada president and CEO, and the entire board of directors is stepping down. Smith was unable to survive the fallout related to Hockey Canada's handling of sexual assault allegations and how settlements were paid out that enraged the country. Many politicians have called for leadership change, and many corporate partners have paused sponsorship. Greg Strong, the Canadian Press.
The NHL is opening their season today with 2 games. First at 4 p.m., we have the Tampa Bay Lightning visiting the New York Rangers. Lightning defenseman Ian Cole is facing suspension due to sexual misconduct and will not be playing the season opener. Cole will have an interview with the NHL tomorrow in New York regarding his suspension. As for the Rangers, winger Sammy Blais is also listed as day-to-day. The second game of the night starts at 7 p.m. and has the Las Vegas Golden Knights coming into Los Angeles to play the Kings. Left winger Victor Arvidsson for the Kings is questionable to play. As for the Vancouver Canucks, their season will get started tomorrow in Edmonton with a game against the Oilers. The Canucks are dealing with quite a few injuries, highlighted by off-season acquisition Ilya Mikheyev, who came over from Toronto. He is currently on the injured reserve. Now, in the world of baseball, the MLB playoffs are continuing today with the divisional series. We'll start with updates in the 2 games that are currently underway. The Philadelphia Phillies are playing the Atlanta Braves. The score there is currently 7-3 in favor of Philadelphia as the Phillies look to take a 1-0 series advantage. Before that series got started, Phillies Canadian interim manager Rob Thompson got promoted to full-time manager of the club. Philadelphia Phillies president of baseball operations Dave Dombrowski says the Ontario-born manager earned this.
I don't know what else you would have to do from a managerial perspective to earn a contract extension, and my mind was totally made up to be in a position that Rob's the right person for the job.
Now, the other game going on right now is the Seattle Mariners are in Houston playing the Astros after beating the Toronto Blue Jays in the wild card round. That game is sitting at 1-0 for the Mariners in the first inning. Now, later today, the New York Yankees take on the Cleveland Guardians in Game 1 of their American League Division Series. Yankees manager Aaron Boone says he has confidence in his lineup.
It's going to take a big shot from everyone in different moments at different times, and I do feel like we have the people in there capable of hopefully doing some really good things offensively.
The pitching matchup in that game includes Yankees ace Garrett Cole taking on Ontario native Cal Quantrill. Quantrill will be making his first career postseason start after a 15-5 season where he posted a 3.38 ERA. This game will get started at 4:37 p.m. this afternoon. The last game of the day will be the San Diego Padres taking on the best record in baseball, Los Angeles Dodgers. Julio Urias gets the nod for the Dodgers over Clayton Kershaw as the Game 1 pitcher. As for the Padres, Mike Clevenger will take the mound. First pitch is set for 6:37 p.m. this evening. Canadian star Alphonso Davies has been ruled out of Bayern Munich's Champions League match tomorrow as he continues to deal with a bruised skull. The injury comes from Davies receiving an accidental kick to the face from Dortmund's Jude Bellingham. There is no update on when the Canadian superstar will be able to return to game action. Sticking with Canadians, the Wheelchair Rugby Worlds have started. Canada took on Australia this morning where they lost a close game 55-53. Canada ranks 6th internationally and will continue play tomorrow against Japan. Now in the NFL, the league is set to discuss roughing the passer calls after the weekend saw 2 very controversial penalties. A person with a direct knowledge of the matter told the Associated Press that the NFL did not tell officials to pay more attention to roughing the passer calls after Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa's series of concussions. The league is not planning on making any changes regarding the rule, however, the topic will be discussed next week when NFL owners meet in New York. Staying with the NFL, the Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver Devontae Adams is in hot water after shoving a photographer following last night's loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. The photographer who endured the shove has filed a police report claiming injuries. The NFL is reviewing the actions of Adams with a fine or maybe even a suspension coming his way. Adams posted an apology on Twitter saying that's not who he is. Now for your weather updates. Today expect more warm weather here in October as the sky will stay clear with the sun out. Temperatures will reach as high as 18 degrees while getting as low as 9 degrees in the night, and expect more of that throughout the week. Those were your news and weather, or sports and weather updates till 1 p.m. Once again, my name is Kyle Collis, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.